What's up, guys? Welcome to Newswave Week in Review. We're going to go back, take a look at some of the comments that you left, and answer them and kind of talk about them. We'll also give a quick summary of some of the big topics throughout the week on Newswave. So if you missed any of them, this will be a good way to get caught up. So let's take a look at what you guys had to say. On Monday, we talked about Mario Odyssey spoilers being everywhere after copies of the game leaked, as well as embargoes being broken. Because of this, the internet, whether it be Twitter or YouTube, were full of details about the end of the game, including final boss details. Ray Minishi says, for future reference, wouldn't blame Nintendo if they stopped giving everyone a copy after this. Worst way to break trust and return Nintendo back to quiet, much like the early 2010s. And Nintendo did respond to some of this prior, because there were leaked games out there. There were games that they had given out for reviews, or they just leaked in general. And people had, I think it was Mario, Luigi Superstar Saga, the one that came out for the 3DS got leaked, and they clamped down pretty hard on people who usually get the game kind of early, specifically Nintendo of America, and I can understand that to a degree because they need to reevaluate the people who are reviewing some of their games, and really, they have everyone sign certain documents and stuff. You have to be pretty much trustworthy to get this stuff, and if you're not, then they will cut you off or maybe even pursue legal action. I'm not sure how far they would go with it, but really what happened was there were a couple bad apples that really ruined it for the bunch, essentially. It really only takes one person to ruin this for everybody, and somebody decided it would be a good idea to leak a game like a Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga and potentially ruin really anyone who is an ambassador and wants to review the game properly and follow all the embargo details. Unfortunately, there just were people who didn't want to do that. And, well, you saw it happen. Most people didn't get Mario Odyssey that were from Nintendo America, like YouTubers and influencers didn't get it till the first day, which prompted me to pretty much rush through the game and beat it on release day so I could at least get a review out sometime this week. Whereas before, you get a game like maybe a week early, maybe. I posted that picture for Splatoon 2 where I had it relatively early. I posted up on Twitter. But I completely expect Nintendo to kind of step back and maybe reevaluate the people they're sending these to. They definitely know who did it because, according to articles, they pulled a serial number from the 3DS that leaked it. So they should at least know who did it. But again, they're being kind of careful now, especially with Mario Odyssey. It's their biggest release. Unfortunately, it didn't work. People still leaked all kinds of stuff. Street dates were broken. I'm sure there were some people who were supposed to be under embargo that broke that. It was a mess again. It seems like you just can't control this stuff even if you want to. On Tuesday, we discussed a new D-pad shell being produced for the Nintendo Switch, the left Joy-Con, along with the original Xbox games gaining a 4K upgrade when played on the Xbox One X. The original Xbox games will gain better frame rates as well as higher resolution on both the Xbox One S and the X. Triple Hood says, I don't think that the Xbox One X is going to make a big splash. I mean, I don't even think it's supposed to do that. It seems to me as if Microsoft wants to have a more casual version of their console in the Xbox One S and a more hardcore version in the Xbox One X. I might be wrong, though. No, you're absolutely right. The Xbox One S is for the casual consumer who doesn't really care about resolution and just wants to play the game on their standard 1080p TV without all the bells and whistles of 4K and maybe better frame rates. Although the Xbox One X, things like Destiny 2, for example, stay at the same frame rate as the S because of, well, competitive reasons with multiplayer. But no, you're absolutely right. Microsoft is attempting to cater to both audiences, the consumer that doesn't care and the ones that do. And unfortunately, that difference is pretty large in terms of price. It's about double the price to $500. So I don't think the X is going to make a massive splash, mostly because I don't think Microsoft's going to produce a ton of them. It's not going to be like millions of these things in December or anything. It's going to be like 400,000 in December. But to Microsoft, that might be a win because then they're getting both the hardcore consumer, like you were saying, and then the consumers that don't care will see the Xbox One S as cheaper because it will be about $200 at Christmas time like it was last year. And that looks a tremendous amount cheaper compared to the $500 model. So if the $500 model wasn't there, the $250 model would be the top one, and that would look kind of expensive to them. Whereas if it's next to a $500 model, all of a sudden that $250 one looks pretty cheap since it's half the price. On Wednesday, we talked about Gamecube Controllers working on the Switch along with Insomniac shopping around for a publisher to make Sunset Overdrive 2. After the new update 4.0 for the Switch went live, it was found that the official Nintendo Gamecube adapter worked as it did for the Wii U. At this point, Gamecube controllers can be used in most Switch games despite not having enough buttons for some. On Twitter, Insomniac answered a fan question when asked about Sunset Overdrive 2, simply saying they just need a publisher to make it happen. Malbit says Nintendo should pick up Sunset Overdrive and publish it on the Switch. At least we'd have some relief that it wouldn't be canceled like the plethora of games canceled by Microsoft. Now, I already mentioned that Sunset Overdrive would work well, I think, with Nintendo's ambition right now, which is to bring over mature-rated games, or at least more mature games, to kind of cater to all audiences, and it still has that very colorful atmosphere and color palette that I think Nintendo likes for their games. So Sunset Overdrive makes a lot of sense for Nintendo. I'm a little surprised that Microsoft hasn't offered to publish it yet, considering while the first one wasn't like a gangbusters or anything, didn't bring in a ton of money or a lot of sales, it still did, I think, okay for what it was, and a second one would still have the initial audience, and then you'd probably get new people entering also, so it would definitely do better than the first one. And I think at this point, there are more Xbox Ones out there anyway, so it should have a better attach rate, although Microsoft seems to be taking less and less risk with their games. I think that might be on purpose, just because the Xbox One X seems to be more of a third-party minded system where people like Activision and EA can really tap into its power and get a better-looking version of a third-party game. And to Microsoft, that might be enough to get you to buy the Xbox One X if you don't want to build a high-end PC that would cost about twice of what an Xbox One X would. Thursday, we talked about the Kinect being discontinued. After 7 years of working with the Kinect, spanning up both the 360 and the Xbox One, Microsoft is finally pulling the plug on the little peripheral. The Kinect, of course, was part of the Xbox One when it first launched, raising its price to $500. Later, the Kinect would be removed from the bundle and a cheaper version of Xbox One was released. I Am Goomba Sniper says, forcing the Kinect on us and discontinuing it 4 years later is a slap in the face. This is something I saw a lot of people talking about and alluding to, was that, well, they made us buy a more expensive system than what the PS4 was at the time at $400. Here's the Xbox One with a Kinect that a lot of people didn't really use when it first came out. Some people did, and there was even a point where you needed to have the Kinect completely hooked up to it or it wouldn't work, like the system wouldn't work right. And of course they took that out, so you could just use the Xbox One without it. And in fact, after that, they seemed to make more and more strides to not have you use the Kinect. And once they got to that point, it seemed like developers didn't really feel a need to make any games, or at least include features for it, because they couldn't tell if people were actually going to use the Kinect. At least when Microsoft had it as a necessity, they knew you were going to have the Kinect hooked up because the system wouldn't work without it. Consumers didn't like that. There were people who were concerned about it spying on them, and it just wasn't going to work out. And unfortunately, it was a 7-year project that just did not seem to pan out, no matter how much Microsoft tried to make it work. I do think it was a mistake to include it right off the bat as something that did pump the price up to $500, because I bet you they could have released it at the same exact price as the PS4, just had the Kinect sold separately. They might have even been able to undercut the PS4 if the Kinect wasn't in there. They might have been able to get it out at $350, which I think would have really helped that system going forward in its early years, especially its first and second year. It might not have been as far behind the PS4 now, if the price was better when it first came out. And finally, on Friday, we talked about Mario Odyssey's high ratings, with many outlets giving the game perfect scores. Overall, it was a great day for gamers, with 3 big games coming out: Mario Odyssey, Wolfenstein, and Assassin's Creed. Neo Karen says, please buy Wolfenstein. It's an amazing single-player game. Don't do a Prey on it. If this game doesn't sell, then don't blame places like EA for leaving this genre. Now, what they're referring to there is Prey was a very underrated game in terms of sales, especially sales, this past year. See, Prey came out and it didn't sell well, but it got pretty much critically acclaimed across the board, with a lot of places saying it's a good game, a lot of fans saying it's a good game, but people just didn't buy into it. And now we're getting to a point where these single-player, story-driven, especially first-person shooters, I was shocked that Wolfenstein 2 wasn't going to have multiplayer or microtransactions, nothing. They just wanted to tell a straight-up story from start to finish that was very cinematic, a first-person shooter that really gets you invested in the story. Because a lot of the games we're seeing, I mean, Assassin's Creed, Star Wars Battlefront, they all have microtransactions, they have loot boxes, there's all this stuff being thrown in. And then, of course, multiplayer seems to be forced into so many games now that it's becoming, as they said with Wolfenstein 2, diluted. It hurts the story, according to them. So games like Mario Odyssey, games like Wolfenstein 2, really need to do well, I think. Specifically something like a Wolfenstein 2. Mario Odyssey is going to do well. It is. I think it's pretty clear it's going to sell well. But I would be lying if I said I was not nervous to see the sales charts for Wolfenstein 2, because if it doesn't do well, I think it's going to just keep shying more and more publishers and developers away from making those type of games, and they're going to be more inclined to force in multiplayer, force in microtransactions, loot boxes, and games that really shouldn't have them. And that's going to wrap it up for Newswave Week in Review today. Guys, I hope you're having a good weekend. Thank you so much for stopping by on these videos and leaving comments. I like to go through them and read through them and everything. And make sure you're commenting, because I'll be going through and I'll start picking more as we go along here and get this format down. And I have such a good time doing that. So thanks guys for watching. Thanks for liking the videos throughout the week. It really helps these videos kind of be shared by YouTube's super weird algorithm that nobody understands. But again, thanks for interacting. And guys, I will see you later on tonight for Spawncast. Got a full panel. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm sure we'll be talking about Mario Odyssey and some other games. So definitely come on by and check it out. Thanks guys. I'll see you tonight.